having a pleasant conversation with someone and suddenly it starts to go sour? Are they accusing you of something? No, how could they? You never did anything wrong. Why are they bringing it up again and again? I'm not going to deal with this, I'll just talk about something else. I've told them to let it go, why can't they just drop it? You're stressed, you're tense, you are defensive. Welcome to the Chrissy B Show, the UK's only TV programme that's dedicated to your mental health and well-being. And today, we're talking about being defensive and defence mechanisms. Explaining the psychology of defensive behaviour is Dr. Audrey Tang. We then have on guest Michael Ridsdales talking about how defence behaviours played a part of a turbulent but eventually triumphant mental health journey. And nutritionist Hannah Richards gives us a healthy recipe that is sure to settle our mood. And we also have on singer Rozen Child giving us a performance later on. Now, we say it in confrontations and arguments all the time, you're being defensive. But what does that really mean? Well, according to Simply Psychology, a defense mechanism is a psychological strategy that is unconsciously used to protect a person from anxiety arising from unacceptable thoughts or feelings. There are many defense mechanisms, a few being denial, when you refuse something has happened, repression, when you force yourself to forget something that has happened, regression, when you revert back to a childlike state, displacement, when you take your frustration out on something or someone else. But though common reactions, not much is understood about defense mechanisms. Well, what do you on Twitter have to say? Apis says, I used to think I was a distant person, but I forgot I'm actually incredibly clingy without my defense mechanisms in place. Bree says, I've been so sad recently that my brain has had enough and shut all my emotions off so I won't feel anything at all. Gotta love defense mechanisms. Adaya says, I am so fearful of people trying to love me or making efforts to get close to me. The irony of defense mechanisms. So what does our resident psychologist, Dr. Audrey Tang, have to say about the psychology? Here she is. Welcome to the show, Audrey.
Thanks for having me, Chrissy.
So what's your take on defence mechanisms?
Right, I do find defence mechanisms absolutely fascinating. They originate from the psychodynamic school of thought, and whatever your views on Freud, this is one area of his work that I think is very relevant and still very important to know about. They are, in a nutshell, unhealthy ways of coping with not dealing with the actual emotion that's bothering us.
Okay.
They can be very good in the short term because, as we all know, when something horrible happens, life goes on. So we do need to carry on going. We do need to maybe stay strong for the sake of children. We may need to keep going into work or whatever it might be. Yeah. And so in the short term, it can be very helpful to employ some of these mechanisms in order to keep on keeping on, as it were.
Like what though? What kind of would be good?
One of the classic ones is denial. And the psychologist joke is it's not just a river in Egypt. It is one of those things where it just didn't happen. Whatever it was, didn't happen, I'm ignoring it. It's not an issue, I'm going to avoid it. And if you carry on doing that, it does get to a point where actually, because you haven't thought about it very much at all, it's the meaning of whatever you're denying has got smaller and smaller and smaller, and so in some ways you may have been able to move on.
Okay, so that's where it can be good for you.
Yeah, it can be, but unfortunately what will tend to happen is, because we haven't actually got rid of it, the way you get rid of these things, you face them, you deal with them, you work through them.
Okay.
But because we haven't done that, what happens is it will just come back to bite us often when we're not expecting it, and that's the same with all defense mechanisms. So another one might be regression. Regression is when, instead of dealing with something as an adult, we deal with something in the way that we may have dealt with it as a child. We may scream and cry. We may say, I'm not making a decision. I want you to do it. I want someone else to do it. And then not only are we able to say, well, someone else to make the choice for me, but then if it all goes wrong, oh, you made the choice. I didn't even have to do it in the first place. We never learn from it.
Yeah.
Another one might be sublimation. Sublimation is when you're very, very frustrated, and so you go for a run, or you punch a punch bag, or you play a very aggressive sport like squash or something like that. Now, in the short term, this can be wonderful for you, because what it does is it channels the energy, it gets it all out of the system, but then hopefully when you're able to deal with whatever frustrated you or angered you, you can do it in a calmer frame of mind. Yeah. But if you never come back and deal with it, the anger will still stay there, the resentment will,
those things, yeah.
And then all it will take is a trigger. For example, someone might just say something that reminds you of what made you angry, and they may not mean it whatsoever, but you've gone from 0 to 60, and then you are even thinking, oh, where did that come from? And it is because we haven't thought about it, we've repressed it, we've put it away for such a long time that we haven't actually dealt with it.
This is a very important point, actually, because if you are reacting in certain ways, maybe certain small things set you off, it's not happening by chance. There's a reason.
Yes.
There's always something there, and that's something that has to be dealt with. You
Absolutely.
need to kind of dig, and if you need help with that, also speak to someone.
There's some other, slightly more manipulative ones. And again, when I say manipulative, it doesn't mean you're doing it deliberately. It is our unconscious's way of protecting us from feeling the pain at the time. So another one is called reaction formation. I like to kind of nickname it a bit, the lady doth protest too much, methinks. It's the idea where, because, for example, it might be that you maybe have cheated in the past, but you are adamant that cheating is absolutely wrong and it's bad, and you've changed your reaction so strongly to the opposite viewpoint that you believe that, oh, this will never happen, I will never do that. And of course, because your thinking is so black and white, you don't consider any grey areas. And of course, when a situation, say, presents itself to you, and where the black and white thinking isn't possible for you, that is when problems can occur. And the last, slightly, again, I don't want to say dangerous in the sense of they're not dangerous in terms of they're not physically dangerous, but mentally incredibly dangerous, is displacement. Displacement is where you may be very angry with your child for whatever reason, but because you think, oh, it's a child, I can't take it out on my child, you take it out on your partner instead, because and it will be over something completely random or different or just silly, or your reaction will be so out of proportion that even they're sitting there thinking, what?
Where did that come from?
How did that happen? And it will be because you've tried to hold it back, and instead of actually maybe dealing with whatever that thing is, you're just going, oh, in your head you've said, oh, well, he can cope or she can cope, so I'm just going to have a go at this, and it's, yes, the washing's not been done and that's why I'm angry, and you're not facing the actual problem. In that particular example, your child will never understand what they may have done wrong or may not have done wrong, and if your partner takes it and respects you at your word and is sitting there thinking, you're shouting at me because I haven't done the washing up, then they're already having an impression of you, which may be very unfair as well. So this whole cycle of things can really be problematic.
Wow. So just very quickly now, Audrey, solutions. I know you've just given us one, maybe not for each one, but overall.
The best thing is really when you are in a calmer frame of mind. So a lot of the defences are there to protect our ego. When we are able to face it, deal with it, speak to somebody, maybe speak to a professional about it. A lot of the time when we employ defence mechanisms, it tends to be with close members of the family, because we don't want to hurt them, we don't want to cause extra frustration. And so the best thing is find someone to talk to, and also you don't get that extra feeling of guilt of, oh, I'm talking to my friends, do they really want to talk to me? Or is it? If you're actually speaking to a professional, that's their job. And also they're removed from the situation, so their emotions are not going to be involved in it. So with these sorts of things, face it, but face it in ideally as unemotional ways possible, because defence mechanisms are all about protecting your emotions, but they're not the healthiest way of doing it.
Brilliant. Audrey, thank you so much for your understanding to us, and we'll see you again next time.
Yes.
Well, everyone, don't go away, because now it's time to hear a performance by Rozen Child.
Infectious to the soul, remedy unknown. You disrupt the flow, feels like you just stole all my desires. Oh, you're so beautiful. Every day addiction grows. You know that I am so infatuated. Oh, to another high, you teach my heart to fly. Can't you see it is I, infatuated? Now that I'm insane, with you in my brain, pulling on my strings, I'll do anything, girl. I'm your puppet. the attack on my heart, aiming like a poison dart, venom spreading through my system, and the only antidote is you. You, girl, oh, you're so beautiful. Every day addiction grows. You know that I am so infatuated. Oh, to another high, you teach my heart to fly. Can't you see that I'm infatuated? Oh, 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 I'm infatuated. Oh, 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 whoa, 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 oh, 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 I'm infatuated. Oh, you're so beautiful. Every day addiction grows. You know that I'm so infatuated. Girl, to another high, you did teach my heart to fly. Can't you see that I'm infatuated? I'm infatuated, infatuated. I'm infatuated, I'm infatuated. Girl, to another high, you teach my heart to fly. Can't you see that I'm infatuated?
Thank you very much to Rozen Child there. Well, don't go away, because after the break we talked to guest Michael Ridsdales about his harrowing and thankfully redeemed mental health journey and how his defense mechanisms played a role in that too. But first, what is intellectualization? Is it A, a defense mechanism where people lose intelligence, B, a defense mechanism where you analyze painful events, or C, a defense mechanism that permanently alters the way we think? Find out the answer after this break. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, everyone, your TV program for all things related to mental health and well-being. Now, before the break, we asked you, what is intellectualization? Is it A, a defense mechanism where people lose intelligence, B, a defense mechanism where you analyze painful events, or C, a defense mechanism that permanently alters the way we think? The answer is B. According to Psychology Today, intellectualization is a defense mechanism where people cope with painful or anxiety-producing events by retreating into a cognitive analysis of the event. This then creates a sort of insulating distance from the emotions surrounding the event. Well, now here to share his story is the very brave Mike Ridsdales. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hi, Chrissy.
So first of all, Mike, I have to say, I think this is very brave of you to come on TV to speak about your story. You have been through something very serious, but you are coming on today to help raise awareness for actually people to open up and not to turn to negative coping strategies as you once did.
Yes.
So can you take us back? What actually, there was an event that took place in your life.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that and then what that resulted in?
I was the victim of a sexual assault. Made more difficult, I suppose, it wasn't a date rape, but I was drugged and sexually assaulted. Mm-hmm. In coping with the trauma of the event and dealing with the emotions and stuff, I turned to substance use. Okay. I mean, as a man, it's a difficult topic.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel able at that time to disclose the issue to anybody. You know, you're a man, you have to.
So you just dealt with it on your own?
Yeah, you have to crack on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
What was it you were feeling? What were you going through at the time? Obviously, there must have been an initial shock, but then what was kind of going through your mind? Well,
kind of guilt, shame. I think it's about power and it's about control, and what happened to me was about that. Yeah. It was a case of people who were trying to control me. And there's a loss of innocence to an extent, and again, dealing with that kind of emotion was difficult for me, very, very difficult. So I had quite an emotional time, and I turned to using substances to cope.
Okay.
I used amphetamines, and I used hallucinogenic drugs and ecstasy and stuff like that, yeah. And eventually that led to me intravenously using the drugs, so I was injecting it.
What was that doing for you? Was it just kind of making you kind of forget the incident, or just maybe make you think about something? What was it that you were actually getting from that at the time?
It just suppressed it. It just, like, put a blanket on it. I used the substances, and I didn't have to think about what had happened. I didn't have to think about the people involved. I didn't have to think about anything really. I just used the substances, and I had, you know, a mad lifestyle that went with that, and I was drinking a lot of alcohol also, because obviously stimulant drugs, I needed something that would calm me down. So I was drinking brandy, and it would be straight brandy, and I could go through 2 bottles of brandy a day whilst I was high on drugs. It wasn't an issue, and I never felt drunk. You know, I always felt high, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's difficult to explain unless you know about substances.
How long did this go on for then?
It went on for approximately 18 months, something like that.
Okay.
And then it got to the stage where I was breaking down in public emotionally, so I'd be crying, emotional breakdown, you know, nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
And in social situations, it's embarrassing. It becomes embarrassing for the people around you and stuff. But I couldn't stop it happening. Something at the back of my mind, some subconscious thing, I don't know, would trigger it, and then I would break down. So, you know, my relationships and stuff suffered, and I became more and more introverted, and I was dealing with the pain of it on my own. So, you know, using substances and stuff, I stopped socialising, and I'd just be like on my own in a room.
And at this point, you still hadn't spoken up about this?
No.
Still, so no one knew what was going on while you were acting
No,
that way?
they all just thought, I don't know whether I was having some sort of mental breakdown, whether it was related to the drugs or whatever. And, you know, people just distance themselves, really.
This is just a good point, actually, that you're bringing up, Mike. So for the viewers at home, you know, don't just assume someone is acting up. Could it be a relative, a friend, a work colleague? Most times, I would say 99% of times, there's something behind that, some incident that might have happened to the person or something they're going through. People don't just break down or don't just behave in certain ways for no reason. There's always some kind of root. So maybe rather than distancing yourself as you know what happened, maybe just try and assist the person to get, at least to open up to someone and talk or get some kind of help.
I agree with you, Chrissy. I think it's very important to ask people, if you're seeing people struggling, to ask, are you okay? I never had that,
Wow,
unfortunately,
really?
I never had anybody that would, at that time, that I felt I could talk to, open up to, and nobody ever said. They just thought, you know, I don't know, he's mad, leave him to it. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's important.
Which makes you feel even more isolated and lonely and
yeah, very much
not
so,
wanting
yeah.
to tell anyone, really.
Yeah, very much so. So, beyond the negative coping strategies using substances and alcohol, I broke down after a while. I think it was about 18 months or so, yeah. And I broke down completely. I found myself wandering the streets. I was homeless. My hygiene and stuff went. Obviously, I had nowhere to bathe. I had no one that I could speak to. And my mental health at that time, I was talking to myself constantly. I was having bizarre ideas and ideation and stuff. I think they call it burnout, when you regress to a childlike state. So although walking about as an adult and, you know, can be seen as an adult, in my mind I was a child, and I was hiding in that mental state
Were you
to cope
trying
with
to
my
kind
issues.
of remember happy times, maybe, and when things were better for you, perhaps?
Nothing. I couldn't remember specifically, because it's some time ago now.
Yeah.
What I was thinking of, you know, what kind of mental state I was in. I just know that I wanted to be on my own. I wouldn't come out during the daytime. I tended to wander at night. You know, wander the streets, there was no one there.
Yeah.
And I used substances, and that was pretty much all I did for quite some time.
Terrible. Wow. How then did you, we'll say cope, because somehow you were coping because you're still here. So, but how did you actually pull yourself through all that then?
Well, as I said, I went through a complete breakdown. For a while, it got worse before it got better, so to speak. I was self-harming, I was cutting myself with knives. Again, I don't know why people do this. I've researched it since then. I don't know why people self-harm and stuff, why they cut themselves. I suppose there are lots of reasons for it, but I was cutting away at myself. I've got numerous scars on my body and stuff, which I tend to hide, wear long sleeve shirts and all that kind of stuff, and wear trousers. I don't like wearing shorts because I've got scars on my legs. As I said, processing the emotion but doing it in a negative way, and kind of punishing myself for it. So eventually, because I was using stimulants and hallucinogenics and stuff, my brother introduced me to heroin, and again a negative coping strategy, but it quietens the mind, and that's what it did. So I got onto that, and through my brother I got into services. So I saw psychiatric services because he knew there was something wrong. Obviously everybody did. No one wanted to talk to me, and all. I was lost completely, and that's how it felt. I was just wandering about in a wilderness in my mind. So I got into services, and a psychiatrist told me that obviously I'd been suffering from a paranoid illness. And
did you tell them what had happened to you at that point?
I didn't disclose. I didn't disclose the assault. Okay. They just knew about my substance use, basically. Okay. So I got a prescription from them, and I got off the streets and I got into hostels. I'd been like sofa surfing at people's houses, and I got into hostels, and eventually I got a flat. So I was in the flat for about 12 months. Although I was medicated, I still suffered poor mental health, to say the least. I was agoraphobic, and I wouldn't go out during the day. I'd only go out at night, and that was only to the shops. And that was the situation for about 12 months or so. Through the guys that gave me my prescriptions, I arranged to go into a rehab after about 12 months of living in the flat. And through that, I was able to access a place, and I stayed there for 12 months. I gave up all substances, and I started to think about my life. Also, some of the real positives and stuff. Mind if I just have a
Yes, sure.
Some of the real positives. For the first time, I found people I could talk to that wouldn't judge me, and that would just accept me. I found counsellors and stuff, and I spoke about my issues, of which I had a lot.
How did that feel, talking to someone finally?
Well, I'd been in this bubble. I had been isolated from the world, and I suppose it was like living in a cave, and I began to take steps into the light, take steps away from it, kind of difficult to explain if you can understand that analogy. And over about a year or so, I began to change as a person, began to think about my life, began to think about the person that I'd been, what had gotten myself into, how I'd gotten myself into that situation in the first place, and what I needed to do as a person to change my life, and kind of reinvent myself to a degree.
Mike, I would like to take you on to the next part, because we've run out of time on this one, but I feel that there's so much more that we need to talk about. So guys, do join us after this, and Mike's going to tell us all about how he's actually turned things around, and also how he's helping others today. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Chrissy B, and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit chrissybshow.tv for more information, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chrissy B Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chrissy B Show, and on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Welcome back to The Chrissy B Show, everyone. So before the break, we were speaking to Michael Ridsdales, who was telling us about a very traumatic experience that he went through, which led on to some very serious coping mechanisms, very negative coping mechanisms. And Mike, you got to the point telling us that things did start to turn around for you. Finally, you found some help, you were receiving counselling. But what was it in particular that kind of led to you starting to think about your life and start to change things?
Well, I was in the process of change, Chrissy. I'd got on the flat, even though I was still agoraphobic and stuff, and I didn't like crowds and I wouldn't go out during the daytime. And it was a negative incident, unfortunately. My brother died from a substance, it was a drug overdose. And he had been my only link with life, really. He would call occasionally and make sure that I was all right. He was a very caring guy, and it was a real shame I still miss him. But he died, and at the funeral, because I was using substances also, I made the decision, you know, there was so much sorrow and so much pain, that I couldn't let my parents and my family go through that again. So I accessed services and I said, I need a rehab, I need to get away from all this life. And I went into rehab for about 12 months or so. I was suicidal. I had a lot of suicidal ideation. It was the first time really as an adult that I'd had to cope with life without the use of substances in one form or another, from quite a young age, from my young teens. And that was probably the lowest point in my life, I think. And I went through this 2 or 3 week period where it was a real black cloud, almost like a real force above me. And I just I couldn't cope, I couldn't deal with it, and I just wanted to end it all. Fortunately, I had people there, talking therapists that I could talk to. I had a counsellor and stuff who I used to see regularly, like once a week. And in the rehab, there were a lot of people who were going through a similar situation to myself, so I could talk to them. They were, you know, similar situations, in a lot of cases, similar backgrounds, and similar experiences also. So I managed to get through that. Once I got through that period, I started putting the positive coping strategies in place, the good things, the things that I needed to do, thinking about my life and change. First of all, I started walking, just walking around the field, which was locally on my own. I would go to the field in the daytime. You know, for me that was really strange. And just walk around the field. And I spent a couple of weeks just walking around the field, breaking down my fear of being in public during the day, the agoraphobia kind of thing. And then I started jogging. Just like, you know, I'd jog a couple of 100 yards, I'd walk a bit, I'd jog a bit. My health and my fitness had really suffered in the whole time that I'd been using substances and stuff, and I'd locked myself away in this wasteland, as I said. And until I could complete a full circuit. And then it was 2 circuits jogging, and then it was 3, 4, 5. And I started to feel like I could breathe again, like the cloud was lifted, that whatever had been above me that was forcing me down, this pressure, had gone. This was my mental health, although at the time.
Well, you were always a decent person, but obviously it's just what happened to you that led to you to have display certain behaviours, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so, but I suppose when you consider it yourself, it's easy for a third party to see someone that's outside the situation. But you know, you inside and what you're dealing with, you kind of feel, I don't know, worthless. That's, I suppose, is the answer to that. But yeah, so again, confidence, and as I said, I thought about my life, and through the process of counselling, I was able to deal with a lot of my issues. And I thought that counselling and helping people was a real positive. Again, there's an expression, you help others, you help yourself. So I started helping other people. I did a lot of work on, you know, voluntary work and stuff at soup kitchens. And I saw people there, but for the grace of God go I. They were much older than me, but again, they were of no less value than I. But good people that had just, in some way, life, they couldn't cope with it, and they ended up in these situations. And I would talk to them and try and help them. I went to college and trained as a counsellor because I wanted to help them more. I wanted to know what I needed to do. And during the process, I learned a lot of stuff about myself as well, which helped me to cope and accept myself. So trained as a counsellor, and then I got involved in youth work and helping young people with substance use issues, because I had a massive knowledge base, although a negative one. I was able to turn that negative into a positive. Unfortunately, we lose a lot of people, a lot of good people in life, because they can't see that. Yeah. I mean, the series of events that led to me and led to my change, it's completely phenomenal in my situation. If I'd have known about people that you could talk to, services that you could access, it would have saved me a lot of pain. Later on, I was able to provide these services for people, able to provide support, counselling, education, and that helped me because I was able to turn that negative into a positive. Although, again, the negatives of losing my brother, I wouldn't be the person that I am today, and I wouldn't be able to help in the way that I have done if I hadn't had these experiences. So it's been, my life now is a real positive. The last 20 years or so have been great. Before that, it was negative, you know. So I've tried to, as such, balance some scales, you know, try and put a lot of stuff right in my life. And I've been able to help a lot of people that have been in similar situations. I volunteered in prisons. I worked at Style Women's Prison for a year as a volunteer. And I was able to tell them my story about how I was brought low by my substance use and by I had all these negative experiences, and I used substances to try and cope. And even though you use these things, they only last for 6, 8, 10 hours. And then you need to repeat the experience, and it becomes a spiral downwards. So I've helped a lot of people in a lot of situations.
What's it like being able to help so many people after everything that you went through?
It's heartwarming. I had one guy who I'd worked with. He'd been selling drugs and he'd been using drugs and stuff as a young teenager, and I was able to mentor him through the process of getting away from it and getting away from the gang culture and all that kind of stuff. And a few years later, he turned up at one of the youth clubs where I'd worked, and he was a soldier, and he got married and he had 2 kids, and he said, "Is Mike here?" And they said no, because I'd moved to another club and stuff. And he said, I just wanted to say thanks, he changed my life. And when I heard the story, I was like, you know, I was really touched by it. But I was really pleased, and I was really impressed that he was able to carry on that process once he disengaged from our service. And I've had other experiences such, you know, similar to that. That's probably the one that stands out for me.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Help others, as I said, help others, you help yourself. It takes a while, and you can turn all of those negatives into positives. You just need help and support. It's like teaching a baby to walk. You just need that help and the support, taking those first few steps. Do you know what I mean? And then, like me, before you know it, you're not walking around the field, you're jogging around the field, and then, you know, whatever it takes for you, whatever positive you can put into your life, as a part of the process of change, then I'm fine with it. Whatever it is, you know, as long as you don't hurt people and stuff. Then football, anything, you know. Just
to get you started, isn't
anything.
it? Just something that you did mention, Mike, that I wanted to pick up on, that you mentioned before the break. As a man, you'd actually found it difficult to disclose what had happened to you and everything like that. That is an issue many times. Yes, go ahead. That is an issue with a lot of men, that they have been through something. Sometimes they find it harder to open up. Oh, you know, I'm a man, it shouldn't have happened to me. All those kind of thoughts that, you know, are very negative, and that's not the case at all. You know, whatever you go through, whoever you are, despite the gender, you know, you still need help. What would you say to maybe some men that are watching that maybe have been through something, maybe not what you did, but something traumatic in their life, and they're coping in such a bad way, but they don't know how to talk, they don't know how to open up? What would you say, Mike?
I mean, we have this gender socialisation in which we're brought up to, you know, as men, we're brought up to think that, you know, you can't cry, you can't, you know, if things happen to you, you can't disclose them, all that kind of stuff. And in hiding these things, or in not dealing with traumatic issues, that could be a bereavement or something like, it doesn't have to be a sexual assault. But if you don't process the emotions people will suffer. It's like being bitten by a snake. The trauma happens, whatever that trauma might be, and then that poison is inside you, and unless you get help, that poison will spread, and ultimately, emotionally or physically, it will kill you. I have seen lots of people die from substance use because they're dealing with traumatic childhoods where abuse has taken place, traumatic incidents, and it's such a shame to see beautiful, talented people die because they cannot deal with it, because they're told they have this whole conditioning where they think, you know, I can't say that. What does it make of me?
Yeah.
And you need to be able to accept yourself as a person. And if you can't do that on your own, Chrissy, then you need to speak to somebody else.
Yeah. There's no shame in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Everyone needs help
Stuff
from time
happens.
to time. Yeah.
I think, to be quite honest with you, as far as men in the male psyche is concerned, these kind of things are a lot more prevalent than people say, and that it's suppressed.
Yes.
As I said, it leads to displaced anger. So you've got this thing on the back of your mind, and then someone gets hit or someone gets hurt, or you've got a partner, and you know they're thinking, you know, what's wrong with this person? You know, they're fine for a week or 2 weeks, and then they get drunk, and then they want to fight, or they, you know, they do all those kind of things. As part of my process as well, which I think is useful, I don't use substances and I don't use alcohol. I stopped drinking after rehab because of the social disinhibitor that it is. So it takes away your thinking, and you follow your basic emotions and needs. I feel that, you know, alcohol is it's your choice if you want to use it, but if you're dealing with issues,
not when you're
it's a negative thing, very negative. So as far as male psyche, dealing with that kind of issue and stuff, Samaritans is completely discreet. There are lots of agencies where you can talk to confidentially. You know, it doesn't make less of you as a man.
Not at all.
It makes more of you as a person, if you can understand that.
Brilliant. Mike, thank you so much for coming on today. You've done a brilliant job expressing yourself and, you know, encouraging people to open up if they have been through something traumatic as you did. Thank you so much, and all the best with everything you're doing, all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, everyone, don't go away, because after the break we'll be speaking to Hannah Richards, and she'll be sharing a healthy recipe with us that will boost your mood. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, everyone, the TV program that loves to look after your mental health and well-being. Now, happiness may be an ever-moving state that comes and goes, but something that can help us maintain a state of happiness is what we eat. Now, with us to tell us which foods are best to sustain our mood is nutritionist Hannah Richards. Hello, Hannah.
Hi, Chrissy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
So I know you've got lots to tell us today, haven't you? Because the food does play a really, really important role.
Yeah, I think it does. I think food plays one of the most important, if not the most important role in our emotions. How we feel depends on what we eat, depends on how we feel. So what I want to do today is just show you some ingredients that maybe you don't always put into your salad or put into your lunch or dinner. Because the more foods we eat, the more diversity in our gut microbes we create. And it's our gut microbes that keep us happy, really. It's a very in vogue organ at the moment, the gut, isn't it?
Yes.
But one of the important things to remember is that you've heard of the neurotransmitter serotonin, the happy hormone. We call it the happy hormone. And the majority of serotonin is found in your gut. So if you feed your gut happy food, you feed the microbes, you keep them happy, and you keep your brain happy. So it makes sense to make sure you eat well, you eat a diversity of food, a diversity of colour on your plate, because all foods have different vitamins and minerals. So if you can try, a good trick is sort of saying, let's try and make my dish look like the colours of the rainbow. I would suggest most people eat the same breakfast, right?
I kind of got three.
You got three?
I kind of rotate them.
Well, you're doing well, you're doing well. So we got three, but most people will have one, or one place they go for breakfast. This is just some easy iceberg lettuce. You can cut it up however you like. We're just going to use half of there. Really cheap and easy. You can get them all season, all year round, this iceberg.
And it's £1.
Yeah, and it's got a nice crunch to it. I love food with a crunch.
I don't really use iceberg, to be honest.
No, which one's what's your favourite?
What are they called? Cos?
Yeah, cos, yeah.
Cos, yeah.
Or you can get lamb's lettuce, some rocket leaves, some watercress, loads of different leaves. Basically, if it's green, it's good in my book.
Okay.
So then we've got our avocado. We're all fans of avocados, aren't we?
Just be careful.
Yeah, watch those fingers. Now, avocados are really good fat, and I've got a couple of fats, 3 fats here. And the good thing about fats is that fats surround every single cell in your body and keeps them happy. So if your cells are happy, our brain's happy.
Yes.
If we feed our body and our cells with sugar, then they can get a bit unhappy. They can go a bit crazy. So what happens if you ate a whole bowl of gummy bears? Would you be running around the house?
Oh, yes, probably.
So foods create different reactions in us,
Yeah.
and the fats keep us stable and calm and satisfied. So when we eat food that does that, we're not craving the sugar, we're not craving the sweet dessert, or seconds, because we've been satisfied, and that's the role that fat
plays,
whether it's in a cheese, in an olive oil, or avocado plays. So it's very important.
You kind of sometimes hear conflicting messages, because I was watching a program the other day, and they were saying, like, even though they agree that avocados are really good for you and it's a healthy fat, but you should probably limit to maybe half an avocado a day, because people tend to kind of eat loads of it, and then it's also got the, they're quite high in calories.
Yeah, I think the rule is with anything, you can overdose on anything.
Yeah.
You really can. Too much of a good thing, they say, don't they? So you can absolutely eat too much fat, and often there will be signs in your body that you're eating too much fat.
Yeah.
But you don't need to eat a whole avocado every day, because you get those fats from other food sources: olive oil, cheese.
Cheese, which one really?
Yeah, so we've got some feta here, or goat's cheese, good sources of fat.
Halloumi?
Halloumi, yes.
Some of my faves. My mum usually brings some over from Cyprus when she visits, the proper stuff.
I love a good baked halloumi. That's a good.
I grill it or fry it or just have it plain like that.
Lovely.
Nice.
Yeah,
really good.
Cheap, quick, easy, nutritious. So there's loads of yummy avocado.
Lovely.
Just watch those hands. And then what I've got here are some vine tomatoes. Now, just give them a smell.
Yeah, see, this reminds me of my dad a lot, because he was always in the garden growing tomatoes. So every time I smell that,
It takes you down memory lane.
Yeah, it does.
See, the difference again between getting ingredients, it's maybe a little bit more expensive or in season, the flavour.
Yeah,
see, that's transported you back to your childhood. And that's a good memory.
When vegetables actually tasted like vegetables.
There we go.
Just tastes like water.
Ooh, losing them. But so it is worth having a look at the produce that's out in season, and they've got a much more vibrant colour. And so again, we're just adding more colour to the plate. And a good challenge I get sort of my clients to do is make sure there's over 5 different ingredients on your plate. And it's easy when you're loading it up with vegetables and salad vegetables. We seem to have a bit of a...
This is looking lovely already.
Isn't it? And you can smell those tomatoes.
You can. So, these are the actual ones I like to buy, the vine tomatoes, because they're a lot sweeter, aren't they?
Yeah, and they've got that flavour, and they feel more fresh. There we go. So we just add a bit of colour there. Now, then we've got some feta, and we're just going to crumble that on the end. So you could put feta, goat's cheese, a blue cheese, if you were a cheese person, but you don't have to. Yeah. So we're just going to make a little salad dressing. So we're just going to whiz a bit of olive oil in there. And let me use this little spoon here for some honey. Now honey, people always say to me, really, can I put honey in it? I say, well, lots of people use mayonnaise, they use balsamic vinegar. Yeah. And this just gives it a little bit of a kick. And we love sweet things, so it's not going to break the bank. It's a beautifully low sugar calorie So there's just a bit of honey in there. Now, Chrissy, can you be on the salt and the pepper?
I shall. Thank you for giving me this wonderful responsibility.
And then we've just got some garden herbs here. So you can get them in any, you can get them dried, you could have them fresh, put them on your windowsill. So we're just going to have a shake of basil and a shake of oregano.
Should I put this in oregano?
And a bit of salt, bit of sea salt. Always go for sea salt, a Himalayan one. Yep, perfect. And a bit of black pepper. Black pepper's got loads of lovely anti-inflammatory properties to it. Good.
Did I pass?
You did pass. You can come again. There we go. So we're just going to, I'm just going to put that. Yep, perfect. And just give it a drizzle over the top. And you can see those herbs and spices coming through. I'm then just going to cut one bit of the feta and just crumble it over the top. Again, another layer of colour, another bit of texture. One more bit.
That looks lovely, doesn't it?
There we go. Suddenly we've
So
transformed
appetizing. I love
that
it.
boring iceberg lettuce into a bird of prey.
That's beautiful. I love it.
There we
It makes
go.
me want to dig in, but we have some questions to answer first,
Okay, let's
Hannah.
go for them.
Shall we begin?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
We'll have that. We'll snack on that, everybody in the studio, a bit later. All right, let's have a look. Is it true that beans make you break wind? Because I always get a little windy when I eat them. Are musical beans a real thing or a sign of something else?
Well, yes, I would say so. There are certain foods in the body that are a bit hard to break down. So in a nutshell, we need enzymes to break food down so that we absorb them and digest them and they move through the gastro tract nice and easily.
Yeah.
But when you're a bit devoid in the enzymes, the beans can create almost pockets of gas as they go through the tract because the person's digestive system isn't breaking them down, so they can create a few now and again. So yeah, true.
And does that also mean that maybe the beans weren't cooked properly? Or it just
So sometimes with beans, legumes, nuts and seeds, some of them have a layer, what we call a phytate layer, and you need to soak them to break them down so then they're much more bioavailable. You can access the nutrients better. If you don't soak things, then they can cause a bit of gas.
Okay. And the last question for today, this person's asking, I love coffee but always end up running to the bathroom after a cup. Is that normal? If not, what are some alternatives that I can have instead? I'm not really a tea person.
So any food that sort of creates an irritant to the gut that goes straight through you, often things like chili, mint can sometimes have that effect, acidic things, coffee, chocolate. If things are moving straight through the body, then that's an irritant. It could be a food intolerance, but it might be a little bit more complex than that, and that your body isn't able to hold on to the food in you, so you might need some gut support, some repair work in that gut.
What is the problem with that though? Is it because like the nutrients aren't actually having a chance to get to your body?
It'll probably, that person will most probably be drinking black coffee, and it can be quite a laxative effect.
Okay.
So it's just, it's like a water slide in and out straight away. Okay. So if they were to put some milk or some, a fat into the coffee, then it'd have a better chance of being absorbed.
Okay. And alternatives maybe like herbal teas?
Herbal teas. So there is, it's not really an alternative to coffee because I don't believe there is one. But sometimes people use dandelion. You can get dandelion coffee, and it's the ground down root. But herbal teas.
I mean, I said I don't like tea, so I don't know if that means just a normal breakfast tea that you get. Or
maybe fresh ginger, fresh mint, fresh turmeric.
That's nice.
Any of those kind of things. Fresh cinnamon bark.
Yeah. I love doing that actually. Since you introduced me to that actually, even though I used to have cinnamon
our tea day
in my tea, but now I have it just by itself and it's lovely.
Yeah. Or they could have one of our beautiful hot chocolates.
Yes. We need to save that one for Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas, but we can have it. Well, it's cold now, so anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hannah, thank you so much, my
Pleasure,
darling.
Chrissy.
And we'll see you again next time.
Certainly will.
Well, everyone, we have reached the end of today's program, but if you have any comments that you would like to share about today's show or any of our programs, please do get in touch with us on info@chrissybshow.tv. You can also tweet us at Chrissy B Show or leave a message on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. And if you'd like to know more about me and about the mental health issues that I used to have and how I used to cope negatively with things, you can also visit my personal website, which is mylifeafterdepression.com. Until next time, bye for now.